with Mr. Drew Holmgreen, Vice President, Brand Engagement of MPI. Good morning, Drew, Mr. Holmgreen. How are you today?
Good morning.
Great.
Great. How are you?
We're very well, thank you. It is a pleasure for Boutique My Business to have this interview in exclusive to Europe and the world. So, could you please, sir, introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Drew Holmgreen, as you mentioned. I'm Vice President of Brand Engagement and Meeting Professionals International. I have been at MPI for almost 2.5 years now. I've worked at advertising agencies for about 17 years before joining MPI. And the way that I got to MPI was based on my having worked on a lot of tourism properties. So I worked on a lot of hotels and city brands. And then I also worked on other brands within the retail space.
Fantastic. So you have the experience in the hospitality management as well as in the events industry, the meeting international professionals, MPI. Could you please make an introduction of the role that MPI plays in the industry and the various factions of the organization, the association, the global organization of meeting international professionals, please, sir?
Sure. So Meeting Professionals International is the largest industry association on the planet for meeting and event professionals. We've got about 17,000 members worldwide, spread across 75 countries, and a total of 70 chapters and clubs. We really, our primary mission is to work to communicate, collaborate, innovate, and advocate for this industry. What that means is we try and make sure that we bring strong connections through our chapters and through that network of 17,000 members, and then we try and bring very strong education. Our education is really, education and chapters are truly what set us apart. There's no other industry resource that provides the high-level, award-winning education that we do, or the vast amount of connections that we provide. In fact, we just in Europe alone, we are the largest multinational association for meeting and event planners in Europe. We've got over 1,200 members throughout Europe.
So 1,200 members in Europe and 70,000, emphasizing trainings, emphasizing innovation, emphasizing the development of the industry is exactly what we all need. Could you please tell us, I mean, we all know that this is a massive industry, but the meeting and convention industry, it's worthwhile over $1 trillion and employs more than 20 people. So how does your global organization, MPI, assist this professional, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So the industry itself is massive. I think it's what's interesting, and I've known this just from my experience having worked on the contractor side on advertising agencies, then coming into it, seeing it that much more closely. The industry itself is if you take total impact worldwide, there was a study done by Event Industry Council in 2018. It's $2.53 trillion in total output. $2.53 trillion. If you looked at global domestic product, it's $1.5 trillion. To put that into some perspective, if the events industry was a country, it would be the 13th largest economy on the planet.
Wow.
Which is quite significant, and something that I think is and something that's quite an unknown as well, right? So one of the things that we do as an association is we really try and work to increase the visibility of the people, the professionals who make up this incredible industry. Because our tagline is, when we meet, we change the world, right? People don't necessarily associate all of these massive change-creating functions that event and meeting planners are responsible for outputting. They just kind of show up to a concert, show up to a rally, show up to any type of meeting and assume it just happens, when the reality is it's our individuals, it's our professionals who are making that happen. So we try and, as I mentioned, try and provide them the connections they need, the education they need, but also try and really advocate for them with other partner associations to ensure that we are getting the resources and visibility necessary to continue growing the industry.
Perfect. So, Mr. Holmgreen, as a VP of the brand engagement of MPI, You basically telling us that MPI speak on behalf of the industry and the individuals who work for this industry. Is that correct? How influencing position do you think MPI plays in the development of the corporate business tourism?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of our primary functions is advocacy. One of the things that we really push for is to ensure that governmental entities have a firm understanding of that tourism impact, that economic impact, that $2.53 trillion of impact that I mentioned a second ago. So what we do a lot of is we work with local governments and local government associations to understand that the scope of impact that our community creates. And through that, we help advocate and provide resources to them so that they can help bolster their own resources to help grow the industry internally. A good example here within the States is the U.S. Travel Association. So U.S. Travel Association is responsible for working with the U.S. government to try and secure funds so that this industry can continue to grow and so that tourism continues to be a big driver of economic impact within the country. Especially right now, we work really, really closely with U.S. Travel Association to provide them insights into what's going on in our industry that has, larger scale ramifications on the economic impact and the economic stimulus that business events can provide.
That's absolutely gorgeous. The whole work that you're doing together with the U.S. Association. But what were primarily your markets, your target markets? Where are you heading to? Please give us some details as well on the MPI's chapters and clubs around the world.
Sure. MPI, we're truly a global association. We do have our headquarters is here in the United States. About 80% of our membership is here in the States, but we also have about 8% of our membership is in Europe, another 8% is in Canada, and then we've got a large growing membership in Latin America as well, and also growing in Asia. So we're heavily focused specifically right now on growth within Europe. We've started an entire strategic marketing and strategic communications and growth plan in 2019 within Europe and have been continuing that. Europe has always been a strong market for us. It has quite frankly shrank a little bit over the course of the past 5 years, but we've got some incredibly strong leaders within Europe that we work with very directly to try and grow the brand, to grow our presence, to grow our impact within each country, but also within the individuals who make up the profession.
And not only leaders, you also have Emac, which is European Meetings and Events Conference, which has become a signature event for MPI to highlight the potential and developments and those leaders that you're mentioning in the European markets, within the European entrepreneurs and the potential of the market itself. Could you please give us a review on Emac basic principles? And I mean, we know Emac been taking place for few editions, and last year it took place in the south of Spain, in Seville, the 31st edition. Please give us a review, Mr. Holmgreen, about Emac, the European Meetings and Events Conference.
Yeah, Irene, so the European Meetings and Events Conference it's critically important for MPI. What's really great, we actually use it as a bit of a testing ground for all that we do. To be quite honest, Europe provides us with the great opportunity to kind of test some concepts and to build out things that we can then replicate on a larger scale here at our big worldwide conference, which is World Education Congress. So what we do at Emac, we've got four core principles for Emac that we manage through, and one is to make it financially, environmentally, and culturally sustainable. The second is to really grow that local flavor, grounded in Europe, yet make it globally transferable. The third is to make sure that the event itself is designed for and by our European members for this community. And then the fourth is to really try and push our boundaries and to explore how we can meet, learn, and experience things a little bit different. So Emac is typically anywhere between 300 to 500 attendees. This past year in Sevilla, it was about 315 attendees. In The Hague, in 2019, it was about 330 attendees. So that's kind of our sweet spot. That smaller sampling allows us to really do some functionally different things and to try and work through concepts that we know we can replicate on a larger scale, but we want to test on a smaller scale. And a good example of that is a learning journey. So in Sevilla, we had 4 different learning journeys. One was focused on design principles, one was on leadership, and then we had 2 others. What was really storytelling was another one. So what was really interesting about these is we actually didn't have any conference rooms for these learning journeys. We got people out into the market to try and experience things. The example I would give you is for leadership. So within Sevilla, there's a significant Airbus production facility. What we did is we actually took a sampling of, I think it was about 40 meeting and event professionals, took them out to Airbus, and they actually got to learn leadership skills from French fighter pilots at the Airbus facility. Really, really innovative, very different, like nothing these people had experienced before. A second one was that was stress management. Stress management was with Airbus. Leadership, we actually took them to an Andalusian horse ranch.
Wow.
So first of all, again, we're bringing that local flavor, right? Sevillan, the horse culture there is extraordinary. So we took another 40 or so event planners out to this ranch and had them learn leadership skills by trying to lead horses, because it's the different facets of that was that horses, in order for you to lead a horse, they have to trust you. In order for you to lead a horse, you have to be confident. So they're teaching all of these out-of-the-box skills, right? So these are leadership skills that are absolutely mandatory for you to be a good leader, but you're learning it from a horse.
Correct.
So all of these really interesting concepts. So we use Emac as an event incubator for us.
Correct.
So I talk about how we try and be innovative in the way that we drive our education. That's how we find that innovation. So now, transferring that to the States, later this year, we're going to have our World Education Congress here in Grapevine, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas. This is about a 2,500 to 3,000 person event. So we're taking all of that knowledge that we got from Emac, transferring over to WEC.
And vice versa. Exactly. Right. So as far as you're telling us, of course, as you mentioned, it is an innovation incubator that also use design and it's done for and by Europeans and push boundaries. So could you please tell us why is Emac a must attend for European industry professionals?
Absolutely. Emac's a must attend because that core function of it being designed by Europeans for Europeans. There's no event like this that takes place in Europe, and frankly, there's no event that takes place like this in the world. It does draw about 90% of the attendees are European, but that other 10% are pulled from the States or pulled from Asia, pulled from all over the world, because it's starting to grow in its notoriety as being a very interesting conceptual event. It's one that the theme for 2020 in Sevilla was push your boundaries. Okay, the theme for 2019 was changing the game. We're now working on the theme for 21 in Brighton. But the idea there is that we're constantly trying to create an event presence that's changing you as much as it's changing the profession. So we really want to try and be innovative, and the attendees who go to it, our satisfaction scores are absolutely through the roof because we're doing things that are so innovative and different, and allowing individuals to come and not just sit there and eat the rubber chicken and sit through a boring cold conference room. Instead, we're completely flipping that on its head, right?
Yes.
And taking you out into the market. So another really interesting thing that we did in Sevilla, we had a program called Eat With. Eat With is a group that's global that allows you to go and dine at a person's actual house, and you can select the experience. So what I did, I went to, and I can't remember his last name. Antonio was his first name. He had this inside the old city walls.
Yes. Downtown Seville.
Downtown Seville. You show up to his house and he cooks one of the top 5 meals I've ever had in my life, but all very
traditional,
very locally sourced, traditional, right? Just absolutely exceptional food. So again, we allow people to experience the culture, but then also have takeaways that are actionable and interesting for their profession.
Wow, that's absolutely impressive. And people not only, as you just said, experienced the culture, but also had an extremely high profile speakers during this Emac European meetings conference. I mean, the quality of the speakers that you brought to Europe during the last 2 editions are people such as people that has worked in the air forces and people who can transmit exactly the knowledge by example. Please tell us a little bit about your next Emac edition and who could be the potential speakers, or please explain us a little bit more about the storytelling and the success about the speakers and the high profile of those super top professionals that you bring to Europe during your events, conferences, Emac.
Sure. For Brighton, we're still in the process of kind of molding the event itself, so we haven't started contract with any speakers yet. But this past year in Sevilla, our 2 of our keynotes, our opening keynote and our closing keynote, were both done by a group called Dear World. And if you've never heard of them or seen what they do, it's extremely impressive. And it stitches together a story all the way across the event. So what we started with at Dear World is we allowed people to, in the opening session, to actually turn to each other and kind of tell their story, but give them some parameters through which to tell it. So it's structured. Then throughout the event, they had different setups where you could actually go, and this sounds kind of interesting, but when you see it unfold, it was really remarkable. You allow people to tell their story by actually writing things on their skin. And then they would take photography of these individuals. And then at the very end, the final keynote, the closing keynote, brought it all full circle and then they started telling the story. Some of the individuals who had written on their skin and had told the stories actually got up and told their story to the entire group. And then they had a really nice kind of video montage at the end. So we brought them on because we knew that this was, again, a very interesting way to provide that perspective of storytelling, which is critically important for event and meeting planners. When you are planning an event, when you are planning a meeting, 3 of the key takeaways are: you want to learn something, you want to connect, and you want to be able to tell a story, right? And so all 3 of those come together in this Dear World aspect. So it was a really, really interesting way to bring that all full circle. Going into Brighton, I mean, the bar continues to get set higher and higher for us. As you might be aware, we won a BEA award for The Hague when we had Emac there in 2019, and we'll put in for it hopefully again for Sevilla. So the bar continues to get higher. In Brighton, we have such great partners with the City of Brighton and then IMEX Group that we met with them immediately after Sevilla to start planning 21, and have started to kind of cultivate and work together on a theme. And because of the current world situation, where we've kind of put that a little bit on hold right now, but we've got some really, really strong concepts that we are starting to kind of tailor and pull together. If you've never been to Brighton before, that was my second time to go there, and just from a cultural perspective, it's a remarkably interesting city. Myself, I'm a big pub guy, so I like going to pubs and drinking cold beer. So Brighton fits really well with my persona. But there's ways that you can actually use that pub culture to start to work in the aspect of sustainability. You can start to work with that pub culture to start to cultivate the aspect of being inclusive. And there's something really, Brighton is such an open, passionate city. It's a very inclusive city. It's a very sustainable city. So we kind of start to see the building blocks of how that could potentially be turned into a theme. It's a remarkable city, and we're excited to go there.
It's so interesting, and I hope all the audience, not only Boutique Mice business, but the international and mainly the European audience would understand the major benefits about Emac and MPI. Please highlight what are those major benefits that they can not only experience in the learning level, but also, as you said, they will remember experiences and they will go back to their regular work, knowing more, knowing and enjoying, because they are learning through masters, at the same time experiencing, and at the same time got new knowledges. So yes, I know Brighton is going to be the 32nd edition. It's a brilliant, absolutely vibrant city of the UK, and all we want to know is what would provide the 32nd edition Emac 21 in Brighton to all these new members that hopefully will join you on February 2021, sir.
Yeah, so I think what's really going to be interesting when we get to Brighton in 2021, what we are all going through as a culture right now, and specifically as an industry, Brighton in February 2021 is going to likely be one of the first times that we as an industry globally can get back together again, right? Later this year, we're going to have our World Education Congress here in the States. We typically get a good contingency from Europe to attend. But an event like this that will be taking place in Brighton, much like World Education Congress will be here, it's going to be one of our first times to really rally back together as a global industry. And coming together in a place like Brighton, one of Brighton's taglines, strap lines, is "Feel the love." Okay,
feel the love.
Feel the love.
Right.
So there's a great opportunity for us to have that kind of passionate come together feeling when we all get back together in Brighton. Our goal is to make sure that we are creating an experience that will facilitate education, facilitate the connections, and provide some new knowledge and the ability for individuals to really kind of have that release of what they need right now more than ever. And Brighton's going to be a great place for it. We've our community of 17,000 members. We hope that we can continue to grow that community, especially within Europe. And there's such great opportunity for us to bring all of these individuals together in that one place this next year, and it's going to be such a ripe time for us to do that.
Exactly. I mean, over 70,000 members, and you have over 70 chapters and clubs around the world. It is a global network. It is a community. MPI created the community of those professionals that would like not only to get more, but to experience and share and learn. So, sir, could you please tell us what are your major priorities within your agenda as a VP of brand engagement of MPI, and obviously at the forefront of the development of the next edition of the European Meeting Event Conference Emac 2021? What are the main priorities on your agenda 2021, sir?
Sure. Our first priority is always to make sure that our community has the resources they need. That's top level all the time, and that extends itself to our 17,000 members. But to be quite frank, it goes beyond that. This is 100,000 professionals, and we want to make sure that those professionals have what they need as well. So we do offer free education. We do offer free resources, and the hope is that when individuals take advantage of those, they will see the benefits of being a member, and then will join. So that's our first priority, is to make sure that the community is taken care of. Our second priority is to protect the brand and make sure that the brand is always positioned in the right way, that the brand is always living up to its expectations. So our mission is, like I said earlier, is to innovate, collaborate, and advocate for the industry. Those are our brand pillars. So one of our priorities is to ensure that those brand pillars are always kept front forward and that we are always making good on them. And then the third is to deliver experiences. So we want to make sure that whether those are face-to-face experiences like Emac, like WEC, or if those experiences are virtual, which is extremely important in our current environment, right? So we provide, right now especially, we're doing at least one online live webinar per week. We need to make sure that those experiences are valuable and that those experiences are providing the right level of opportunity that our community needs. And then finally, our chapter network. Our chapters, with our 70 chapters around the world, we always want to make sure that they are given everything that they need to operate. Our chapters really do work like their own small businesses. So we have to make sure that they are well maintained, they are given the resources they need, whether that's from a logistical perspective or from a financial perspective. We want to make sure that they're positioned for success.
Fantastic. So you're providing the resources, and you're also mentioning the webinars, so people can keep on developing regular basis, on daily basis. They can keep on withdraw all that they've learned together and keep on taking it to the next level, which means you can keep on learning and innovating with MPI and Emac from your home and from any country around the world, because the resources and the voice of the industry is taking care of all those members and people that would like to keep on growing up and take it to the next level. Fantastic. So could you please tell us what is important to continue to strengthen the development, meaning tell us a little bit about your affiliations, your alliances, your collaborations with international associations or collaborations for becoming even bigger than you are day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really focused on partnerships, especially now more than ever. There's a lot of other industry associations who operate within similar space as us, but not necessarily competitive. So we always want to try and supplement each other. Just a few years back, we had an event called Global Forum that took place in Rome. And we actually partnered with SITE, which is an incentives organization. And we put on, the event itself was a little bit over 600 professionals attended that. So we are always looking for new opportunities like that. We have a very strong relationship with SITE, with IAEE, which is the International Association of Account Executives. We also have great relationships with other, basically it's
events councils, like events councils and key associations, incentive travel societies. I mean, you keep on working the different target markets, as well as those global associations, event councils, incentives, and trial societies. That's fantastic.
Right. And we work very close as well, going back to kind of the tourism side. The destination marketing organizations are extremely tight partners of ours. So we always work really, really closely with those DMOs. Like, for example, when we went to Emac, we worked daily with the Sevilla Convention and Visitors Bureau. When we're looking at Emac in 21, Brighton is one of the key contributors to helping form and shape that event. So we work closely from an experience standpoint with those CVBs, but then we also work really close with them whenever they need any type of resource. We want to make sure that they get the proper visibility that they need, because at the end of the day, our industry professionals, our members, need to rely on the CVBs for resources when they're planning their events.
Absolutely. Okay, and in your point of view, how do you see the MICE, the Meeting Incentive Conference, events, exhibitions, industry for the next 4 years? What's your vision as a visionary that you are, sir? How would you like to see the industry within the next 4 years?
Well, I think that we are being forced into a pretty significant pivot right now. Technology, like we're using on this conversation, is something that's going to become. I don't think that it's going to supplant face-to-face conversations. I think that you're going to see it more supplementary. I think over the course of the next 4 years, you're going to see more of a merger between face-to-face and video conference type of solutions for big events. I think that you'll start to see experiences merge in that, and this is something we're actually exploring right now. You'll start to see them merge in terms of the experience you get over your monitor may not be that different from the experience that you get in person. The connections will start to get facilitated better. The entertainment aspect of it will start to get facilitated better, as will the actual keynotes. I think you'll start to see a real strong merger of that over the course of the next 4 years. So virtual and in person are almost not going to be distinguishable at some point.
That's a very good point that you mentioned, because I was going to ask you, how can the MICE industry master the balance between digital and event transformation?
Yeah, and it's harnessing the right technologies. And to be frank, I don't think that the technology is there just yet. We're all kind of finding that out as we're sheltering in place right now. I think that the technology advancements will happen more rapidly because we've been forced into this. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be very interesting when we do get there, because like I said, I don't think that it's going to be very distinguishable meeting face to face versus meeting over a monitor anymore. And what's interesting about that, Irene, is, you know, you're in Spain and I'm in Texas right now. It's going to allow us to have these virtual events that are going to have they're borderless.
But you will not be able to have the paella that you had in Antonio House over the interview.
No, that's true.
That's why we have to go to Brighton and see what are the new experiences for those MICE professionals and experienced seekers in the next edition of Emac 2021. Okay, sir, stop planning meetings and start designing shared experiences. That's the motto of MPI and Emac. Please develop it a little bit further, this quote.
Sure. So that was the theme that we used for our World Education Congress in Toronto this past year in 2019. And it was a theme that we had stitched together from the past 3 years. And we're actually evolving away from that a little bit now. The show that we're putting on in Grapevine here later this year is going to be focused on creating authentic experiences, where in Emac, we were pushing your boundaries in Sevilla, and now we're trying to mold that theme for Brighton. And then next year, in June, we'll be in Las Vegas for our World Education Congress there. So what we've really been focusing on within that's been kind of a launching point on our strategically trying to push our community away from meetings and more towards experiences. Because meetings are something that you go to and there's not much innovation there. You know, that's more of the rubber chicken, cold conference room type experience, exactly. Right? We want you to design an experience, because experiences are what change people. And at the end of the day, when somebody attends an event, you as an event professional want to be the facilitator of change, and experiences create that change. So when we put on our own events, we want to make sure that we are showing you how to design experiences to create that change. And our hope is that at our events, that's exactly what you walk away with. You walk away with having had an experience that has changed you in some positive way.
While you enjoy and love what you're doing, and that's the good strength from the industry, that it's growing more and more and more, because is what you said before. How did you mention about Brighton and love? You mentioned.
Oh yeah.
You said.
Yeah.
You said.
Yeah, Brighton was Feel the Love.
Exactly. So I think that if we tie it all together and we input a little bit of joy and a little bit of love, I am absolutely sure it's going to be the most successful Emac European conference event meeting that you will have the next February in Brighton, and obviously with the backup of all the professionals of MPI. To finalize with, sir, please, would you please send a message for all this European, international, nice business community, and especially in these moments, a message of strength and positiveness to the whole world, please.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I've learned recently is there's a big difference between positivity and optimism. Okay, positive is cheerleading, is saying, yeah, I think it's going to be okay. Optimism is, I know it's going to be okay. I know that this is going to work out. Optimism is confidence. So the biggest message that I try and portray right now is we need to have optimism. We're a strong culture. We're a strong profession. We are hurting right now, but we have been through this before. We've been through devastations that have been economically profound. We've been through them that have been physically profound. This is one that is impacting us on both sides, but we're an extremely strong culture. We're resilient just as a race, and we're going to get through it. We will come out to the other side. What's amazing about our industry in particular is that we are going to be the ones who are holding the flag. We are going to be the ones who are going to drive our global economy back to stability and back to growth. When you look at and talk to and hear from our community right now, it's really impressive and remarkable because that optimism is there. We had an event last week, Global Meetings Industry Day, talking about virtual experiences. We had 11,000 people take part in a 12-hour broadcast last week.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredibly impressive. The optimism, the passion, the engagement and interest among that community was remarkable. We had 12,200 chats take place throughout the course of that experience. That's 1,000 chat messages per hour, and they were all so extremely optimistic, so extremely passionate, and just virtually reconnecting. And that hope and that drive is there, which means as we get past this, we're going to be resilient and happy and good.
Confidence, supporting the professionals' development, and obviously raising the awareness of our industry, the meeting industry. So thank you very much, Mr. Holmgreen, VP of Brand Engagement of MPI. We're really looking forward to assist you and let the whole world know about your new ideas and details regarding the next edition of Emac 21 taking place in February in Brighton. So anything you would like to add, sir?
Nope, that's it, Irene. Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you very much and hope to see you very soon in Brighton.
Thank you.